Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Trade the Chain. It is Friday, December 11th, and we're so happy you guys could join us. I'm joined by my co-host, Ryan Gorman, as well as our two crypto analysts, CJ and Monty from MarketRebellion.com. First, I'll let Ryan get the legal stuff out of the way.
Trade the Chain is for informational purposes only. All content on the website and on this webcast are not to be construed as investment advice and should not be taken as such.
Absolutely. Don't listen to anything we say. But here, Ryan is going to run off our shameless plugs of our show sponsors.
TradeTheChain.com enables you to trade like a crypto insider through an AI sentiment-driven dashboard with actionable alerts across social media, crypto markets, and a number of other sources that are scraped to provide real-time SigDev and social media sentiment data. We also have a community of active traders around the world sharing ideas, victories, and sometimes defeats. That's TradeTheChain.com.
Yeah, as I've said many times, beautiful interface. Very nice job. And here we have Market Rebellion Crypto. You can join our community for just $1 for the first month. We have a macro crypto portfolio that you can follow along with. Monty and I, we publish crypto insights on a weekly basis for you guys. And we are in the chat 24/7. You can always ask us questions about crypto in there. And we also have a charting platform that I'm going to go through some of the charts with, and you'll see that used in Trade the Chain as well. But if you want to learn more, check out marketrebellion.com and then just go in the crypto section here and you'll be able to join our community for just $1. So please check that out. And without further ado, let's get to the big boards here.
Now, one thing while we switch over to the charts and the big boards, I got to say, I find it funny how we had a, big price action rise in Bitcoin over, say, the last, 30, 40 days. And then all of a sudden we go sideways for about 7 to 10 days and everybody's bored again. Is that going to change?
Oh, yeah, that has to change. I mean, people are just used to such extreme volatility at this point where when it starts moving sideways, they look elsewhere. I mean, there's so many money making opportunities, whether you're looking in traditional equities or in crypto. I mean, yeah, a sideways market is pretty bad when you're talking about just interest in general.
Yeah, and to your point about sentiment, Alex, it's kind of funny. When Bitcoin was making new highs and getting closer and closer to making new all-time highs, our boss was telling us, you have to have each new high a tweet has to be sent out. We have to accelerate the FOMO. And we're not the only people doing that. Everybody's doing that. That's the sentiment in the space when you're creating higher highs repeatedly. Now, like Monty said, price action has kind of gone sideways and sequential has reflected that. Now we're seeing a little sell-off period where we're back onto the 5 and bearish to neutral price action, in my opinion, looks like it's likely to continue, especially with the fact that we're now breaking below this TD support level left from the previous 9. When you're looking for support, specifically with the TD support level, this dotted line, ideally it'll find support with a wick. So you can see right here, it perfectly wicked off and was able to recover. This is much different because the candle body is literally closing below or in the middle of these dotted lines in the support level. So I'm expecting bearish neutral price action to continue. It's interesting because we have a 9 on the 4-hour that we'll talk about in a little bit, but very general overview. It's just where I see the market.
Yeah, and to your point, CJ, I think we're at a pretty important crossroads here where we kind of have that set up support from TD sequential, and also just the general price of 18K seems to be acting as somewhat of decent support, and people seem to be content with buying Bitcoin at anything less than 18K. So I think where today's candle finishes is going to be pretty important. If it can finish above that support line, then I think maybe we'll get some just short-term positive price action, or at the very least sideways price action. But yeah, I think I'm in agreement with you where if we break this support and today's candle closes below it, like it's looking like it's set to do, I think this kind of downtrend can continue a bit further.
Do you think that the reason it potentially is going sideways is because we have all these institutions that are stepping into the space? I mean, some of the news we'll get to later, plus Mass Mutual and a number of other firms, they're buying and allocating where, well, it appears many others are selling. Do you think that the size of the participants coming in at the allocations that they're coming in could potentially keep it from, plummeting like it did after the last all-time high back in 2017? And that's kind of what's keeping it afloat?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that CJ and I have been harping on for quite a while, is how the drawbacks during this bull run, we anticipate they'll be much less severe than what we've seen in the past, just because the institutional money is a lot less fickle than the retail money that played a more important role in 2017. So, I mean, we have companies like MicroStrategy and others that we'll talk about later, putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet for the long term. So I think that is kind of mitigating the effect of people that have been holding Bitcoin, retail investors or just everyday holders that are selling at 20K and taking profit at that range. So I do think that the institutional money has really mitigated the severity of the drawback.
In the short term, do you still, we talked last week about Bitcoin potentially dropping all the way to 15.5. Do you still see that possibly happening, or do you see it moving more in the direction of that JP Morgan research where they said once millennials really start piling in a mass audience, that it could 10x within short order?
Thank you, Ryan, for bringing that up.
The 15.5?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the latter outcome is probably more likely that you mentioned, Ryan. I don't think we're going to 10K. And at this point, like, the trend is sort of looking like it's trying to put in a higher low here at around the support level that Monty said, 18K. We're going to have to see if that holds. So I'm going to be watching this 4-hour chart very carefully, especially with the fact that we have the sequential 9, which may be indicative of a reversal. Now, it's not characteristically the 9 that would be a for sure reversal. I wouldn't necessarily take a long trade based on this 9 because the 9 candle isn't necessarily below the 8. However, the 7 closed very nicely below the 6. So you like to see that, but the 8 was not able to close, or excuse me, the 9 was not able to close below the 8. So this is kind of more of a neutral 9. Nevertheless, the trend is just kind of neutral bearish. And the thing that is, we get caught up in the shorter term time frame, but if you look on the weekly chart, we have like a textbook 9 that is correcting as well when you pair it with the 13. These are both conditions that are satisfied in a TD perfected sell. And that's what we're seeing here on this 9. So I'm expecting at least 2 to 3 more weeks of neutral to bearish price action based on this alone. I mean, not a lot has changed.
Interesting. And what's the story with Ethereum while all this is going on? I know DeFi's taken a little dip in action, but has Ethereum been following along with Bitcoin, or has it been playing its own drum?
They've been highly correlated. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you can tell that right away just by looking at the weekly chart that CJ pulled up. It does look incredibly similar to what we are seeing with Bitcoin. And yeah, as a result, I do kind of expect that they'll continue moving in tandem. But one thing that kind of is worth speculating on is when we're going to start hearing about institutions putting or considering putting ETH on their balance sheets. So we've heard a lot about Bitcoin being adopted by institutions. And I think that's something that hasn't really happened yet for ETH, at least publicly. So I think once that does happen, we could see a similar and even further run up. But yeah, in the interim, it is looking very similar to Bitcoin. And yeah, it looks like we're in for a little bit more neutral to bearish price action.
And do you think that, we're talking about balance sheet being filled with Ethereum? I mean, that's a bigger leap than Bitcoin. Do we feel that that's going to have more profound effect on the crypto markets from a broader scale than let's say MicroStrategies or Square buying their Bitcoin for a balance sheet when all of a sudden a company says, hey, we're going to buy Ethereum?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting point because, I mean, obviously Ethereum is so closely related with many DeFi assets. You can expect that if institutions are taking interest in Ethereum, that it would massively benefit the DeFi projects as well. So, I mean, you could also I mean, if just looking back a step and looking at how ETH was affected when we started seeing institutional money flow into Bitcoin, obviously it saw a very nice run up as well. So yeah, I think there would be a profound impact, particularly in the DeFi and altcoin space, if ETH was considered by some larger institutional players.
It's funny you mentioned that, Alex, because the number of active Ethereum addresses are, they're up about 140% this year alone. What impact do you guys think that that's had on the market overall? I mean, including DeFi in that, and also XDeFi.
Well, I think it means that there's a lot more flexibility in the market, not necessarily just for Bitcoin. There's more to crypto than just Bitcoin. And Raoul Pal has been trying to make this point that there are so many various vehicles within the financial system. And if we were actually going to replace the traditional financial system with something better or something decentralized, then someone has to create it. And so many of these DeFi instruments, while they are young and still experimental, they do fulfill a lot of, and they do improve on a lot of the existing architecture in like the lending markets. And so as that grows, I believe it's going to be beneficial to the collective space as a whole, but it's still to be determined if we can build the entire stock market and tokenize it and put it on Ethereum.
I mean, some people are trying. I forget the name of the exchange that has tokenized equities. It was just announced, I think, this week.
Wasn't it FTX?
FTX. There's another one that just announced it a week or two ago. But then you also have like, companies like Standard Chartered, Northern Trust that are, they're now planning to offer crypto custody for, Bitcoin, I think Ethereum, other coins, including Bitcoin Cash and XRP in the UK. I mean, what impact do you think this will have on, an asset like Ethereum? We can pretty much surmise what it'll do with Bitcoin, but do you think Ethereum will follow a similar path?
Yeah, I think it will. And I mean, we have said in the past that Ethereum and other altcoins would likely benefit the most when we saw an influx of retail interest. But I mean, that middle ground that you're talking about, just allowing people to custody Ethereum through Standard Chartered or Northern Trust, I think that would be really important to kind of get more legitimacy provided to holding Ethereum, and also just another on-ramp for people to get into it. I think that would be hugely important. And yeah, I think that would maybe be a stepping stone for institutions considering taking on larger positions in Ethereum. So yeah, I could see that being a big benefit to ETH.
Real quickly, guys, before we exit the big boards, what are we looking at right now for a support level test with Ethereum? Not feeling, I love Ethereum above 600. Don't know. I feel like it's a wild cowboy in the fives here.
Yeah, right. There isn't too much support looking at 500 itself. Yeah, we've got this level that CJ's pointing out, but I mean, I think it could pretty quickly retest 500.
Wow. Okay.
500 has been pretty good support in the past, just with that psychological level, as well as 511, like you have seen paired here. But like in the past, we've seen price moves go from 500 to 600 in just a couple of days, like very, very quick price action. We may see something different if, we have more downside pressure and get a red 6 or a red 7 in the next 2 days. That being said, this previous higher low is very important for support.
All right, cool. Well, over to the hot list, we got THETA, which tickers the same as its name, THETA. It's also one of the cherished tokens of our good friend Rob over at Digital Asset News. Big THETA guy, and THETA is alternate streaming service that's on its own blockchain that's supposed to be a competitor to YouTube. But what are we looking at with THETA as far as some trajectory here?
THETA's been pretty steady climbing, and then it kind of got to this period where it just kind of consolidated, and we've been in this period of consolidation Let's see if we can get the chart to load. We've been in kind of this neutral consolidation channel, and we were very close to breaking out of it earlier in the week, just a couple days ago. But as you can see, we topped on this 9 and were rejected at the previous resistance level of about 77 cents. Almost got above it, closed with a red 1. Now we're coming down, beginning that 1 to 4 candle red correction. That's typically what occurs after the 9s happen. But I'm watching the 77 level very close for a breakout. The reason why I wanted to add it to the hot list was just because it had a nice run up this week, topped on the 9, nice technicals, and is now coming down. I'm going to continue watching it. This has kind of been a nice accumulation zone to look for before testing another possible larger breakout. So interesting stuff with Theta. I want to take a look at it on the weekly just real quick. So still fairly bullish on the weekly after coming off that rejection, but bullish neutral in my opinion for Theta.
And I'm curious on how both Theta and T-Fuel are going to react with the smart contract release on their blockchain. It's the announcement that they have coming up, because I don't know, I wonder if they're going to act in concert with each other, or if T-Fuel is going to be the winner on that positive news. It'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Over to Monero. Now, XMR is an interesting coin. It's one that I've actually fallen in love with over the second half of this year. It's had tremendous price action for year to date. But you know, it's also one of those coins, folks, where, you know, more or less you need to provide a swap to gain entry and exit to. Not a lot of exchanges allow you to withdraw XMR for AML KYC reasons. But what's happening here with XMR as far as price action?
XMR has been one of those that has just had a great uptrend ever since March. Some assets have kind of flattened off or have remained stagnant, but XMR has had a very consistent, steady uptrend ever since March and has been very bullish for that fact. Now you can see we topped on a previous 9 earlier in the beginning of October, created a very strong resistance level at about 137 to 140. And we're still kind of struggling to get fully above here. But looking over the past couple of weeks, we've had an incredibly bullish consolidation right here from early November all the way up until, you know, our current point in December. And while we are on a red 3 count, we're starting to find some support from the previous TD9 level. And so I'm going to keep watching this to see if we can break above that previous higher high and go into new freer territory of price discovery. But looking on some of the shorter term timeframes, you know, it kind of looks like we may have put in a low, at least in the short term, on this 9, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see whether or not this green 2 can close with sustained momentum above both of these previous support levels. So bullish neutral on XMR, but pretty interesting. Did you guys also hear the news about Pornhub not accepting Visa anymore? So
I don't know. I never heard about Pornhub until
never heard of it. Never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
But there was a bunch of hype with Verge, I think a couple of years back in 2017, that they partnered with, you know, Pornhub. But it's interesting. There wasn't any response from the privacy coins like Zcash or Monero.
Well, I think it's, you know, it's interesting, you know, and not going to go into details of why like Visa, MasterCard pulled out or any of that stuff. But, you know, when coming up for alternative solutions for payment partner transactions, you know, it's looking more and more towards crypto for these kind of guys, you know. XMR, I mean, they're right there. We'll see. Excuse me, folks. Now, I don't know if you hear it or not, but it sounds like a bunch of people marching across the ground right now, and that's because our next one has an army behind it, the XRP army. And I know that Ryan is, see, he's starting to smile already.
think they're running into XRP now. They're not marching anymore. They're running to get as much money into it as possible for the airdrop.
Yep, and that's exactly it, folks. XRP is our next one on the hot list, and that's because of the Spark airdrop and Ryan's impending cash in on his 3-year holdings at 13 cents. No, I'm just joking.
Yes, 3 weeks at most.
But yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. And CJ Monty, with first, let's talk about where XRP is going right now. But then, if you could just give a little insight into like the Spark airdrop and what that means for XRP as a whole. And is this a short event moving thing, or is this something that could be a long term, rising trajectory for the price?
Yeah, well, whether or not it's going to be a long-term thing is pretty much the $1 million, or I guess with XRP and its market cap, it could be a potentially $1 billion question. But for me, I can't imagine a scenario where people don't immediately sell off a lot of their tokens when this happens. So essentially what's going on is tonight at midnight, there's going to be a screen.
Midnight.
Yeah, UTC. So what time is that Eastern?
That's 7 o'clock Eastern, 7 p.m.
7 o'clock Eastern. Yeah. So I mean, if you look at some of the shorter time frames, you can see that people are kind of rallying in, like Ryan said, they're running in to get some XRP before this airdrop, because essentially what's going to happen is however much XRP you have in your account tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, that's how much Spark token you'll be airdropped at the later date of the airdrop. So this is really interesting, because are people going to sell off tonight immediately after the screenshot is taken? Are they going to? Ryan's nodding his head yes. So some people will be, but will others wait to get the Spark token and then dump that? I mean, I anticipate that after tonight we'll see a quick sell off. But yeah, it's been kind of interesting to see people accumulate it right before the deadline.
Now, let me jump in here for a real quick sec, because I just want to get a firm understanding. Are are people going to get the Spark airdrop in any wallet anywhere, whether it's their Ledger wallet or whether it's at Coinbase, or I know Voyager, because there was an announcement that Voyager was going to support it. But is this for anybody who has XRP in a wallet, or is it particular places?
It's in a wallet or on specific exchanges. So some of those exchanges are, Coinbase, Kraken, Binance, Bitfinex, Bithumb, Bittrex, eToro, Huobi, OKX, and Poloniex, as well as Voyager. Those are the ones that have announced so far, according to an article in Decrypt from.
Did you say Coinbase?
I may have said Coinbase, yes.
Okay, I'm just wondering, because if I have to go buy some.
But I mean, it's a 1-to-1 airdrop, and a lot of people have been piling in. In fact, the addresses with 10 million or more tokens for XRP have reached an all-time high as of earlier this week of 339. The way the price is starting to grind up today, I wouldn't be surprised if that's a little higher. But
I'm sorry, Ryan, 10 million or more tokens?
Correct, for XRP, yeah, 339 people or wallets, and
well, yeah, you're talking about, you're in the millions of dollars now with the current price.
At 56 cents, it's what, 5.67 million.
Yeah.
So yeah, and a lot of people who got into XRP a couple weeks ago when it just shot up came off the back of that airdrop announcement, and a lot of those people are probably still holding their tokens. Some sold off, obviously, right after the move upward, as you can see by the correction there. But many more are holding it, waiting for the airdrop. I'm one of them, full disclosure. But I can't imagine a lot of the people who got into XRP over the last few weeks are going to stick around once they get the airdrop. I don't know what XRP's long-term potential is. I just saw a money-making opportunity, and many traders probably feel the same way. I don't want to speak for others, but there have to be other people that feel this way. And to Monty's point, I wouldn't be surprised to see this price drop somewhat after 7 p.m. Eastern tonight.
And have we seen this historically before? Is there any instance of time where a holder of Bitcoin, obviously in this case it's a holder of XRP, they're getting flare, but with Bitcoin Cash, obviously Bitcoin holders got some of that back during the fork. And if we compare, it was almost like an IPO. Like we talk about with some of the DeFi tokens weeks back, it's hard for the market to value these things right off the gate. And, you know, we had a massive, there was a huge range in Bitcoin Cash when it first dropped and forked off of Bitcoin. Whether or not Spark will do something similar, it's going to be an interesting experiment. I'm expecting things to sell off pretty hardly, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was some very interesting volatility similar to this.
I think one point of differentiation here is that Bitcoin Cash was a hard fork meant to take users off of the Bitcoin network, right? Whereas Spark is a utility fork that's trying to add functionality back to the original Spark chain. I mean, the original XRP blockchain. So I have no idea how this is going to react, but I mean, the smart trade when you're unsure is to lock in your profits, at least in my mind. You know, I've reached my objectives, I've achieved my goals, and it's time to move on as far as I'm concerned.
All right.
Yeah, I agree. They're not the same, but just
I mean, it's an argument you could have. I mean, listen, I think BCH was a little bit of a different story than say XRP and Spark. You're talking about adding to technologies rather than, you know, splitting off and forking and stuff like that. I'm curious to see, you know, I always compare it to XMR. You know, I look at what the trajectory of XRP is. I'm sorry, not XMR, to XLM, and see if XLM is following the same suit, because they're almost like one-to-one competitors as far as what the functionality is supposed to be. Yeah, XLM looks like it's followed the same path.
Almost identically.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Not list. We got Chainlink, tickers Link, and that's caveated by almost all other DeFis, according to CJ. So, what is going on with DeFi? Why did you blanket them on the not list more or less for this week?
Yeah. So I mean, before going into Link, this is a DeFi perpetual index on FTX. And this is quite a waterfall after we broke this upward sloping trend line. You know, we're probably going to get a 7 tomorrow and then possibly another 8. Right here, we're breaking below our previous low. It's just not bullish from a technical standpoint. And this is the entire DeFi market in these perpetual contracts. We can also look at the altcoin perpetual index, a little bit different, but still pretty bearish. Now, going over to Link specifically, I like Link because it's in a very interesting channel. Seeing on the 4-hour here, my device is a little slow today. It's a little unusual. Anyways, you can see we've hit another 9 and have created the support level around 11.4. So going to be watching the hourly chart or the 4-hour chart very carefully for any potential reversal. But you can see that we're already on a 9 on the 4-hour. But then when we go to the 1-day, we'll be reaching a 9 tomorrow. And we're pressing up against this upward trending support level. And personally, if I'm accumulating Link for the long haul, I don't mind buying off of a 9 tomorrow, which closes below the previous 8. Because this 8 has closed below the previous 7, and this 7 has closed below the previous 6. So this is an ideal buy count based on the sequential indicator. So that's what I'm looking at in the next 2 days. I think if we're going to see a bullish transition, obviously it's going to start on a shorter term time frame like the 4-hour, then it'll carry over into the daily. So I'm watching the 4-hour very diligently, but we're kind of in this widening mouth accumulation channel. And it looks pretty bullish from the long term. Interim, we're still bearish though.
What about you, Monty? What are your thoughts? Are you playing in the DeFi pool right now, or are you staying out until things change?
I'm staying out for right now. I think CJ pointed out a good point when he pulled up the DeFi perpetual index and also the altcoin index. And you can kind of see by looking at those that we're approaching these I mean, we're attempting to make roughly higher lows. We're kind of approaching those, that basin that we hit last time during the sell-off. So this is a pretty critical point right now. It's going to be pretty telling to see if people are, or what price people are willing to buy back in at. And I mean, if you look at charts like Link, I think CJ does make a great point that if you are thinking long-term for Link and your goal is accumulating as much as you can before the anticipated massive bull run that will happen when Bitcoin does eventually 10x, like a lot of people are thinking it does or is going to, I think that this is still a very good buy. And I mean, the downside I think is minimal when you look at this chart. I think Link is a great buy anywhere under $12. So I think we may see a bounce back, but for right now, you got to approach this with caution. So I'm not gonna buy in yet, but yeah, tomorrow we're getting that 9, so might be a good day to buy.
Monty's not buying because all his money's in XRP. Irresponsibly long to the airdrop.
I'm a bag holder in Link at both $12 and $20, so we'll see. All right, we're gonna finish up with some exciting news that has happened this week, and this is MicroStrategy CEO Michael Saylor and the story of another $100 million of Bitcoin bought. Ryan, to you.
Yeah, so initially this week, this unsecured debt offering, convertible debt offering started at what, 450 million? And then within hours of announcing it, it was up to 550 million. And then we looked this afternoon and it's up to $650 million. And he's been very clear, Michael Saylor has, that it's pretty much all going to be used to buy Bitcoin. And it's raised a few more eyebrows than the initial allocation did. And you know, that tide of people who are kind of congratulating him and looking at him like the Bitcoin prophet, so to speak, that many in the cryptoverse do, some people are starting to look at each other and ask questions about how responsible this is and how much sense it makes for one company to hold over $1 billion worth of Bitcoin when it's pretty much their free cash flow. I know Alex has quite a few thoughts around this.
Yeah, I mean, listen, first of all, going to raise 650 million convertible senior note sale is I find that a little tad irresponsible on its own. That's a big bag to hold if that trade goes sideways with note holders. But also, you know, listen, my opinion is, and again, it's just my opinion, is that Michael Saylor and MicroStrategies went into the Bitcoin buying spree for marketing ploy reasons. I mean, that's just how I feel, right? You know, you look at a guy who had a couple hundred Twitter followers before buying Bitcoin, now has 200,000 Twitter followers. Every time he tweets something, it's like the golden goose has laid an egg.
The Bitcoin Buddha.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden he's a Bitcoin Buddha. Yeah, I really do. I know a lot of people watching are going to disagree or they want to believe something else. I really believe that this was a calculated market research thing in the first half of 2020, executed in the second half of 2020. It's driven stock price up over 150%, I believe. It is given, it is more than doubled the market cap of this company in 5 short months. It has made the CEO a celebrity of sorts in circles, and this company has outperformed itself and its forefront of appearance tenfold than it did from when it first got listed to when it began buying Bitcoin, which was a very slow and steady rise.
Hey, fellas, can we take a look at a chart comparing MicroStrategy to Bitcoin and see how much in lockstep those two assets perform? Because, I mean, a conversation we had yesterday, Alex, with Matthew Edwards at Dalpha, he was talking about how a lot of people think that these hedge funds jumping into Bitcoin and jumping into MicroStrategy rather is a tacit endorsement of Bitcoin itself, when in reality, most of them are quant funds. Right. And it's a short-term bet. They see the ARB opportunity from the convertible debt, from the convertible note, and that's what they're really there for. They're there for the volatility opportunity. They're not taking a long-term bet in a quant fund on a stock that trades almost in lockstep with Bitcoin. And a lot of the people who are in this space don't really understand that. They just see Bitcoin go up. They just want number go up. They don't want to know the fundamentals. They just want to take any piece of positive news that they can possibly get and pat everyone on the back. Like, hey, we're going to the moon. Everyone gets Lambos, and that's just not really what's going on here. And so many people don't understand that. And I don't want to give away too much of the conversation, but when we publish that podcast, when's that going to be out? This weekend or early next week?
It's gonna be early next week. But you're absolutely right, Ryan. I mean, the fact that everybody's going up and saying all these high-profile hedge funds are holding position MicroStrategy. They've been holding positions of MicroStrategy since the beginning of when it first got listed.
Renaissance, right?
Yeah, Renaissance and a bunch of other big ones. But the thing is, they're quant funds. They don't select what they're going into. It is selected for them based on their arbitrage strategy. I mean, that's just how it works. So it is by no means endorsement. Don't link the fact that a company bought Bitcoin on its balance sheet is an endorsement from a hedge fund that happens to own it in its portfolio. I don't know. It's I just don't think it was done for all the reasons that people think it was for.
Brilliant execution. I mean, he was literally on every single channel. Michael
He
Saylor.
couldn't have timed that trade right, CJ. I mean, imagine how this world. I feel like Bob Bassani going nuts on the floor in Chicago or something. Imagine that trade. Like, you're right, brilliant execution. Buys a crap load of Bitcoin and then within months doubles his fortune.
Better lucky than good.
Looked like the hero. Now, what would have happened if that price had halved?
Yeah, it would have gone really poorly for him. He'd be possibly answering to the SEC.
He still had a good investment thesis, though. Like, he had a reason to buy it, and it was very clear. And he was able to justify that at the time he believed he was protecting his company. And essentially he described his free cash as just a giant pile of melting ice, and he needed to preserve that capital somehow. The logical conclusion as a technologist that he came to was putting it all in Bitcoin. While that volatility is still here in the interim, when you analyze it from a fundamental perspective, it does seem pretty justifiable.
I agree with you. 100%. I think it is justifiable. There's a story backing up the decision. I just don't think that was why it was decided. I think it was plausible deniability.
Only because it did well. If it didn't do well, we'd be having a very different conversation. And I could go into this all day, but we don't have time.
We don't have time. Well, let's hope XRP goes to the moon tonight for Ryan. Folks, don't forget to go to marketrebellion.com. Check out CJ and Monty over in the crypto ops center over there. They built quite the awesome product. I'm in there every day. I see what's going on. Tradethechain.com, and if anything exciting happens, we will. Oh, he's in guitar land now. If anything else exciting happens in the markets before next Friday, we'll bring something to you. Other than that, have a great weekend, and thank you very much for joining us, folks.
Thanks, everyone.